Hello everybody and welcome to another Average Tanker's Tank Review. This time the VK3601. Now, this tank is the tank before the Tiger and the tank after the Panzer IV. Panzer IV being one of my favourite tanks in the game. I mean, this is my crew on it. I have, this is my best trained crew. Because I played this tank a lot, usually with this gun, actually, because who doesn't love a derp? And there's my girlfriend's Facebook pinging. Hopefully that wasn't audible. Probably was. Anyway, it's a bit of a weird move from the Panzer IV to the VK36, because it's not quite the same tank. Obviously, for a start, it's a move up from a medium to a heavy. The Panzer IV is a medium, and the VK3601 is a heavy. So you kind of have to adjust your playstyle accordingly. In the Panzer IV, you weren't going to bounce shit. Or at least I never bounced shit, because you've got 80mm of turret armor, which is flat, like most German tanks, the same with the VK36, and it's not much more either, but on the VK36 you have 100 on your turret, whereas on this you had 50 on your turret, so everyone was going to penetrate you all over the friggin' turret, and a massive cupola here. On the 3001, still a pretty big cupola, but I don't think I've really been penetrated by it that much anyway. And a really good turret profile as well. I might have to shut my girlfriend's laptop up if it keeps doing that, because she's out, but her computer is still annoying. Yeah, the front of this tank, like a lot of German tanks, until you get to the really higher tier ones, they're flat. Alright, I'm gonna shut this thing up. That dealt with, yeah, they have very flat fronts, which can be quite problematic. They're completely unangled, so you have to do it yourself. And if you don't, you're gonna get penetrated, like, left, right, and center, you're gonna die real quick. So a lot of people, say that you really don't want to be brawling in this tank because of the kind of lack of bounciness without any angling, and the same about the Tiger. The Tiger has a very flat front as well. The Tiger is like a square, and it has as much turret armor as this as well, so you have to take that into consideration. But I've bounced quite a bit, and I'll be able to show you in some of the replays, because I have those, obviously. That if you kind of wiggle it around and make sure you don't let people aim at weak spots, you can bounce a reasonable amount of shots in Tier 6 matchmaking. If you get Tier 7s and 8s, you're going to get penetrated, play like a sniper, or you have no chance. The guns, yeah, there are two that are really worth going for. The Waffe, this used to be called the Konish. I'm fairly certain this was called the Konish until 8.9, and I really don't know if they changed anything. There's nothing about it in the patch notes, but it seems like the same gun to me. Let's just put it on, because it's fairly visibly different as well, actually. It's a much smaller gun. This gun, bring up the characteristics of both of them, shall we? The 8.8 and the 7.5 here. The 7.5 has a much higher rate of fire, almost double, and even a higher penetration, because smaller round as well. But the difference is the alpha damage, of course. A lot of people prefer the 7.5 gun on this, and it's fairly reasonable. It's better in most aspects. It's got a higher rate of fire, a higher accuracy, not by much, admittedly, the same aiming time too, but and a better penetration, which might help out in the 7 and 8 matchmaking. But I really like the 8.8, just because the way I've been playing the 3601 has been very much suited to having a bit more alpha damage and a bit more brute force behind the gun, having to pop out less often, and yeah, much heavier as well. I wonder if that will affect the speed of the tank at all. So let's put this one back on. And of course there are the other two that you got to grind through. There's a bit of derp there. And actually, I think this is one that you can... Yeah, this is an entirely different one. Which is just worse than this one. Maybe. I don't know why that exists. Maybe there's a reason, but I'm not seeing it, that's for sure. So like I said, it's not a fast tank. The Panzer IV was quite quick, and this one has a speed limit of 50, but it's pretty slow to get there because it's quite heavy, weighing 42.2 tons fitted the way I have it, which is top everything, and the 8.8 gun, which is the heaviest one of those, so with a weight limit of 45, you're not going to reach that unless you've got it filled with modules. And I have a gun rammer, and nothing else on it. I mean, really? Maybe a gun laying drive, an improved vents, but I don't want to blow a load of money on that. But if you were planning on playing this thing for a very long time, I would go with a laying drive and vents with a rammer. The laying drive isn't really necessary. The aiming speed on these tanks are just bloody dandy. It's pretty quick. But, I mean, maybe, you know, if you wanted to go for that, if you wanted to be even faster, maybe if you were playing like a sniper, like I know some people do with this tank, then that might suit that, but not for me. Yeah, that's that. On to the replays. So this is a game I played earlier today, which nicely demonstrates kind of getting up close and personal and in brawling with the enemy tanks. So this map is swamp, and I usually on swamp go to either here and into the town or down here and into this town, but this time I thought I'm gonna go in the mud, and that ended up working quite well. So as we're moving forward, some scouts show up, Stuart and the M5A1, and I missed my first shot, but it's going to my view because and he stops, so you know he's just asking for it. Yeah, I don't know why, but the aiming reticule is still way off, so that kind of sucks. But there's both the enemy scouts dead, which is always handy. So a nice covered position behind this rock, where you can do that angling that you have to do, and which I'm about to completely not do, actually, against this KV-1, because he's shooting at someone else, so I thought I would take a couple of shots at him like this, and I'm bouncing him right on the front plate. See, this is where the Konish, or the Waffer now, would have probably penetrated. So I decided to stop shooting at him, shoot the Crusader instead. Things are starting to look dangerous, so it's time to put that angle to use. Take a shot and miss at the Hetzer, bounce a shot from the KV-1, and then have the Hetzer miss me, so it's time to go behind some slightly better cover, and miss that Crusader. And there's a KV-1S over there. And I remember thinking, oh shit, a KV-1S, but then these shots were doing very little damage and bouncing a lot, so luckily for me, he's not using the much feared 122mm gun. And I tracked him with my first shot, so pretty much got him here. Can't remember if he even gets another one into me or not, because yeah, there we go. Doing that wiggling. Wiggling means that he can't aim at my weak bits, which is of course handy. Pop out and shoot at the Crusader, leaving him on 25 health to be finished off by the T1 Heavy. Now there's a Hetzer and a KV-1S over there that I know of. A KV-1 rather. So I'm going to try and go around here and see if I can get some sneaky shots at the Hetzer. I'm not too worried about what's going on the other sides of the map, because they seem to be doing well enough. Our team is indeed kind of steamrolling. Hetzer's going to give me a nice easy shot there. right into his lower glacis. I'm going to move up even further. I think that shot was from that KV-1 there. Take a snapshot on the move. Didn't expect it to hit, but those glorious times when they do makes it worth it, doesn't it? So, you know. Moving along, the replay's a bit jerky. I don't know why, but the replays aren't going great at the moment. And this is from this patch, so it's not that being weird. I don't know. You know how they are. And, coming around to get this Hetzer. Missed way off, so that sucked, but and then bounce. It's got a very well sloped surface there and it's angled. And now I get shot by a Hellcat, so that's slightly worrying. Hit the ground next to him. I could repair my track and move backwards here, but I'm bouncing a lot of shots, so I just let it repair by itself. There was an Electo over there as well. An Electo and a Hellcat. Plinking me. The Hellcat doing damage and the Electo just bouncing me over and over again. Yeah. So I'm going to come around again, being a bit crazy, giving it the wiggle. But the game is progressing very quickly, so I don't want to miss out. Right into the lower glacis of that Hetzer, and it's a critical hit. So I don't know what I broke, but probably something important, given where that shot landed. Bouncing the Electo again, and he gives me a nice sneaky shot. I was hoping for an ammo rack, because Electos are just one giant ammo rack, but it was not to be. So 1,839 damage. If we just fast forward here, I don't get a shot at that Hellcat. So, 1,839 damage. There was a lot of bounces in that game, so I'm just going to show up the score screen. Blah-da! Post-processing. Alright, post-production, rather. I took a lot of potential damage there, which was obviously what I was going for by wiggling around and making sure I don't get shot in weak spots. I only lost like half of my health whilst being in the line of fire fairly constantly. And I did finish top of the team as well, which was a nice double XP for the day. Probably going to show some ones in the higher matchmaking now with having to play a bit more cautiously and play from long range. Okay, so this replay is one that's a little bit more... also, there's some Tog spattering shit, and I'm pretty sure I replied to him, so, forgive me. So anyway, there's a... This is a replay. It's a bit more of an example of choosing a spot and shooting from it. I don't really execute super well on it, but as you can see, this is the Konish or Waffer gun. And there's KV-1S just driving into me. That too. Okay, there we go. Yeah, here I am just saying, you chose World of Tanks to spread this word. Okay, just shut up. And great, whatever. So I actually end up going up to this ridge here, because there's a lot of spotted tanks over there, and I want a slice. Yeah. We're already in my view. Can only see that Tog's turret, so I'm not going to take any shots at that. KV-1S. I damaged him, and I don't know. It looked like I tracked him, but I've also got this running at 2 times speed. But he went unspotted, and no gun depression. Unfortunately. Had lots of nice shots at that KV-1S, and didn't get to take most of them because of lack of gun depression. KV-1S gets picked apart. KV-1 coming across. I actually bounce KV-1s quite often there. You know, for a tier 5 they have brilliant armor, especially when he's angled like this. So I'm trying to shoot him on the flat surface, but they keep going low and hitting his angled surface. Except for that one, which went low and hit his lower glacis at an angle that you would have thought would bounce, but it didn't, so whatever. And same again. Don't know why all my shots were going low, but oh well. There's a police siren in the background, excuse that. Nothing I can do about that. M4 giving me some easy shots. And you can see the reload of this gun is almost twice as fast as the 8.8, and then that Sherman dives into the ditch to save his ass, which is a shame, denying me shots. And it looks like there's a lot of guys moving around in the town over there, so I'm considering moving up a little bit closer to that now. Took a shot that was probably never going to hit on that guy. Definitely can't see that SU. So let's move up closer to the town. Knock down the entire friggin' forest on the way there. Well, I'm not sure that would be classified technically as a forest. And as I'm moving up here, something just tried to shoot me, which for one reason or another I do nothing about until I get hit a couple times. And it's that Tog. So I've got this great position to shoot at him, with just the teeniest bit of my gun showing. I'm getting shot from the other side here, but apparently I'm completely blind to the fact that I'm getting shot from the other side. Also, that this Tog 2 can hit me fairly reliably and penetrate me from that range when there is... Let's just pause the replay. When there is... From his... Hang on. from where he is, you know, he can see about that much of my tank. Over there. Yeah, he's seeing about that. So he's penetrating me. In fact, why don't we have a look? Come like nice and close up. Right on the gun mantler, apparently. Let's see where his next shot is. Oh wait, no, it's not him that kills me. It's KV-1. So that was a pretty crappy game. We lost it, but I did a reasonable amount of damage. Not great, but it was you know, that wasn't brawling. All of my shots were at targets that were engaged with someone else until the end there, which I can't really decide whether or not I prefer that to the brawling in this tank. I think I like to stick with the 8.8 and get up close and personal, just because alpha damage. I mean, you know, nobody likes these fucking sand maps anyway, but I feel the same. There's not a lot of good cover that you can shoot from on these maps, and there's really not a lot of places where you can shoot across the map, because there's you know, dunes in the way of any long-range spot, except for being up on the hill there. But that's for TDs with good radios. So I think that's going to conclude that. I do like the 3601, and I'm almost at the Tiger, but the problem is, in fact, let's switch to the garage for this. Okie dokie. The problem for me with the 3601 is that it comes after my favourite tank, the Panzer IV, and before the Tiger, which is a great looking tank. And how does the Tiger utilise the 8.8 compared to the 3601? I mean, it gets a different one, obviously, with a much higher penetration of 203, slightly higher alpha damage, very slightly higher rate of fire, slightly lower accuracy, and a much slower aiming time. But, you know, obviously at tier 7, 132 penetration wouldn't quite cut it. Now, they do actually have the same gun, though. In fact, it's exactly the same gun. It doesn't even open up a different window. 3601 there. That's the same gun. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, you know, for the grind, we'll be using that with a slightly higher rate of fire. Anyway, I like it. 3601, decent tank. Bit weird looking though. Big turret on a thin chassis like that, which has its advantages because, you know, people just shoot at your tracks a lot. Really thin little slice, and of course, none of this is damage hitbox. None of this will damage your hit points. It's this bit that will. So if you're coming against one head on, don't shoot it here. That should be fairly obvious, but just don't. That was a strange place we just went. Jeez.